Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well. Well, it's that time of the day to hit the paranormal side of the Dogman fam. Before we get into today's upload, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch store to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under this video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's take a walk on the paranormal side, shall we? Today's first part of the upload. I was in my room getting ready for the week and my closet light flickered. I didn't think much of it, just crappy army barracks, right? I continued hanging up my laundry, cleaning up around my room, and all my lights went out. It kind of spooked me and I went to turn them on. And they all worked fine, but just after I turned the main light on, I felt like someone grabbed me on my shoulder and pulled me. I really started to freak out. I felt sick, lightheaded, drank some water, and sat in the chair, just pondering what the heck just happened. I kept feeling sick for 30 minutes and decided to lie down. After lying down a bit, my whiteboard hanging on my wall somehow unhooked itself and fell. I immediately got up, put my shoes and sweatshirt on to leave, misplaced my keys, and started to panic. I felt a burning pain in my abdomen. I completely ignored it, just focused on getting out of there. I eventually found my keys and started to head out to my car when the burning pain came back. I almost had to stop because the burning got so bad, but I kept moving. I got into my car and I lifted up my sweatshirt to see what it was. I had 3 scratch marks where I felt the burning. My heart dropped when I saw them and I felt like crying. I had no idea what to do. I don't know who to talk to about this. I don't know much stuff about this at all. I've never believed in ghosts, but I also never denied the existence. I'm not a religious person at all. I never thought this sort of thing would actually happen. I'm terrified. I talked to my leadership, and they want me to stay another night to see if it persists. Kinda stinks, but whatever. I'm gonna try to get some stuff on camera if this thing happens. Update. Sorry for not sharing anything in the last couple of days. I've been busy with work and having to deal with the whole situation. I stayed in the room that night after my leadership told me to see if it persisted, and to my surprise, nothing really happened after that. The only thing that really weirded me out that night was it was absolutely freezing. The window was not open, the air conditioning was not on. I have no idea how it possibly could have gotten so cold. During that night, my sleep schedule was off and on the whole night. I would usually wake up in kind of a daze or confused. The confusion would go away seconds after I woke up and I gained my senses. Today's second part of the paranormal side. So I was 10 or 11, I'm now 33, and every time I took a shower, I'd look through the bathroom window for a few minutes because I like to imagine myself jumping from roof to roof. From that window you could see a wide portion of the neighborhood roofs, and a church was at the end. This window didn't have a curtain. One night before taking a bath, I opened the window and started to watch the roofs as usual and imagined myself jumping around. But this time, I immediately felt something weird, like I was being watched. I started to look at the roofs in more detail as fear was building in my gut, because I felt something was there, but I couldn't see it. After a couple of minutes, I could see something weird 2 houses ahead of mine. A kind of transparent shadow that for some reason looked like a big winged creature. I stared at it for what felt like minutes, but really was only a couple of seconds, and out of nowhere I understood that it was looking at me and fear became panic. I closed the window and jumped to the shower just to hear this huge impact on the window, followed by a tremble in the whole bathroom. My parents screamed, thinking I fell, but it was that thing. Never again I looked through that window, always in fear of that creature. I've been in my parents' house a couple of times in recent years, and every time I go to that bathroom, I remember this. Today's third part of the paranormal side. Normally, I would kind of put in a different, I'd kind of alternate between poltergeist, demon, ghost, unknown, cryptid, or whatever. But I wanted to keep these number 2 and 3 together because it kind of fits, and you'll see why. You're going to think I'm insane, but I think I witnessed a group of deer get attacked by air or something. I'm rather terrified now. I'd like to share this so maybe someone has an idea of what happened. So I was out walking with my dog, and we're sitting along a brook by my home. There's a huge group of deer across the brook, like 20 of them at least. And they are all just staring at us. Then after a few minutes, a strange, loud, pulsating, whooshing sound starts coming at them. They all start sprinting around in circles like maniacs. 2 of them fell to the ground. I then ran harder than ever before. I've been thinking about what that sound could have been. It makes no sense. I'm absolutely terrified. The deer looked like they were running from something they could see. But all I saw was the deer. That, my friends, is very strange. I'm kind of curious what that is. The fourth part of the paranormal side. This is my first time sharing this. I'd like to point out that everything I am about to tell you is by no means made up or fiction. This is my testimony for the world to hear. Those of you who care about the paranormal, I'm 17 years old now. I've had a few years to think about it and absorb it all, and I'm now starting to look for some answers. Let me share with you my experiences. When I was a kid, I would always feel watched. From a very young age, 6 to 7, I would refuse to sleep alone for this reason, and insisted on sleeping with my brother or my mom. If I was forced to sleep alone, which was the case most of the time, I would stare into my room and observe details for hours before falling asleep. My first experience came when I was around 8. I went to bed like any other normal night. My mom would pretend to sleep next to me and keep me company so I would sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night. I would always wake up around 2. Next to my bed was an old woman that I could see through. I could see all the details. She had wrinkles, probably around 80 years old. She had curly hair, wore a buttoned-up sweater with stripes. I screamed at the top of my lungs and ran out the door. Next to her, and my dad picked me up and let me sleep in their bedroom. It would only escalate from here. Almost every night on this point on, I would see a cloud shaped like human standing next to my door when I woke up in the middle of the night. Keep in mind, I would always wake up around 2 in the morning, no exceptions. It would disappear 30 seconds to 1 minute, and kind of just dissolve and float up to the roof. Note, I could move and speak. This was not sleep paralysis. One night, it spoke with me in a woman's voice. I was sleeping when I woke up to the voice say, "Hi." I thought it was my mom, but I was greeted by a figure standing at the door once again. I tried saying a few words, but no response. My brother reported a female voice whispering good night in his ear one night as well. At this stage, sometimes things would fall down in my room and my parents would come and search it, but found nothing. My brothers, one remains skeptical to this day, started reporting heavy footsteps when they brushed their teeth at night. They would go out and check, finding nothing, go back to brushing their teeth, then hear footsteps and repeat. Hearing heavy breathing right next to me at night also happened a few times, stopping when I turned on the light. One night, when me and my brother were chilling in the living room, we spotted a figure walking back and forth outside our window, maybe 5 meters away on the grass. It was a summer night, so it was fairly bright. It was shaped like a person I always saw, but this figure was black and not a cloudy type that I would spot. It walked back and forth for minutes. We called our dad over, but he couldn't see it. Only my brother and I could. One particular incident made me call it quits and beg for help. I was sick at home from school. My mom was going to the bakery, so I'd be home alone for a little while, which I hated. I went to my brother's room and started playing on some Counter-Strike. After a few minutes, a large sculptor that my brother had made at school fell down onto my face. I got scared, opened the door, and across the hallway I could see a cloudy figure at my own room, exactly the same spot I saw it every night. This time it moved quickly toward the kitchen at a pretty fast pace. I jumped out of the window and waited for my mom to come home. I've never been that afraid, and I get chills writing this. At this point, I couldn't take it anymore and begged for my parents to find someone that could help us. My parents, who had not witnessed anything, alarmed, didn't share the same desire, but agreed to it. I could not be present when he was there, but he claimed 3 entities lived in the house and gave us some details that they were present. And from that point on, I never experienced it again. I would not feel watched anymore. I could sleep alone and never saw anything again. I don't know what it was, but I'm getting curious now after some years that it has passed. Today's 5th part of the paranormal side. When I was in my teens, still living with my parents, we had some crazy poltergeist type of activity. It started with little things, such as items moving or gone missing. I remember we had just eaten dinner, and a glass on the counter slid all the way across the counter on its own. We dismissed it as having water under it, and we knew there was no water on the counter. We laughed about our poltergeist as the chain from a hallway light randomly would start swinging like crazy with no influence from the wind. That same light would occasionally turn itself on, of which the 3 of us would always come up with a reason or an excuse of why it happened. This went on for a little over a month, and then things gradually got stranger and more noticeable. I'd grown up in this house and never had any reason to feel uncomfortable in it. During this time, though, I would get the feeling of being watched. There was a sense of discomfort, insecurity, even fear that started to become the norm. I had a 2nd floor window with no access to it from the outside. There was no tree nearby. There was only a little narrow walkway between the houses that was outside, and it was a floor down too. No one could get to that window without a ladder. My bed was next to the window, and one night, I swear to God this is the truth, the sound of nails or claws scratching against the glass and randomly tapping on it started happening. That was 10 to 15 minutes of just terror. I didn't want to move, and I sure did not want to look and see who or what it was. I just got the feeling that seeing whoever or whatever was scratching that window would end up very bad for me. A gut feeling of if you avoid whatever or whoever at any cost. It was terrifying. This went on for another month or so. It all came to an end one very terrifying night. I had been out for the evening and came home around 11 p.m. Both parents were in their separate bedrooms. My mom was in her room down the hall from my own upstairs, and she was reading. Our little dog Georgie was lying on the bed with my mom, per her usual. My father, sound asleep in his room on the main floor. I stopped in my mom's room to say goodnight, and then I went to get ready for bed. I was home about 10 minutes when furious, very loud pounding started on the front door. It was as whomever was there on the other side of the door was desperate to get in. It could only be described as a desperate, violent, loud demand for entry into the house. You could feel the vibration from the door being hit, even upstairs. Our little dog Georgie was, as per se her usual, lying on my mom's bed curled up for the night. The The furious pounding on the front door at this late hour was so unexpected and unusual. I confess I was afraid to go and answer the door. It didn't escape me that our dog wasn't getting up either, and she was not barking at all at the late night intrusion. I got up and went to my mom's room. She was already awakened by the non-stop violent pounding at the door. Georgie, our dog, was lying on my mom's bed looking just terrified and certainly was not offering to go down to the front door and protect us. She appeared very afraid and seemed to be hunkered down as far as possible into the side of my mom's leg. My mom and I both agreed whoever was there, it was not a good feeling, and neither of us wanted to answer the door. I went downstairs to my dad's room, all the while hearing this unrelenting pounding on the door. The front door was just on the other side of the wall from his bedroom, and yet he hadn't heard any of the furious pounding, nor did it wake him up. I couldn't believe that because the pounding was so violent and loud, and even the dog was afraid. I woke him up, and as I did, the pounding started to lessen in its strength and intensity. It sounded like that person pounding on the door was becoming exhausted, and the pounding became very labored knocks. I got my dad up and made him listen for himself that someone was at our front door at the late hour, and told him that we, my mom, myself, and the dog, had unanimously elected him to answer it. He heard it now as well and wasn't very happy that some fool was pounding on his door at the late hour. That person better be hurt or in trouble, he mumbled. He got up and we started to cautiously walk to the front door. The pounding started to become very slow and weak. It felt like forever to get to the door. I was absolutely terrified standing behind my 6'2" dad, to feel some sense of safety, but to also have his back if need be. My dad reached for the door and yanked it open quickly, just as we heard one last weak and exhausted knock. There was no one there. He and I looked around, went outside, down the front steps, and then to the sides of the house, into the backyard, and found no one. My mom and our dog had made their way downstairs as well. My dad and I split up and each went to the opposite side of the house, leading us to our empty, dark backyard. We came back out to the front and looked for any cars we didn't recognize. Both walked a short distance down the front sidewalk to look in between neighboring houses. We found no one. When my dad and I walked back into the house, we told my anxious mom that there wasn't anyone there. No one could be seen across the street, down the street, all sides of the house, or the back of the yard. There was no one. We were all pretty stressed out all night about this. Georgie, still being held by my mom, was shaking from the experience. It was hours before any of us went back to bed. The poltergeist activity stopped after that. All of it stopped as abruptly as that furious pounding had started. It was as if the person/thing at the door was testing us that night, and the actual answering of the door must have let it out of our house. I think it got fed up with our attempts to ignore it, even laughing at it, over the past few months, and just left us alone. I remember all of the weird things that happened in those few months, quite vividly still. I still get scared when I think about the scratching on my second floor window, and when I think of that frantic, violent pounding at the door that slowly weakened and stopped the second the door was open. This is a true story, and it's 40-some years later now, and it still scares me. This is a bonus part of the paranormal side. The reason why I'm including this is because this happened in Gloversville, New York, which is 45 minutes south of me. I'm going to reach out to this person, and this spring or summer, I'm going to find out where this all occurred and figure out if, with permission of course, if I can go and check things out. So here we go. For some background, myself and a buddy bought a bus from Facebook Marketplace, and we went to the buyer's property, which is way out in the boonies, in order to work on it and get it working while we still had daylight. It turned out the bus was really rusted on some of the parts we needed fixed and needed professional work, so we called our buddy to come pick us up and began to walk down the road to meet him, at least a few minutes early. The drive is about an hour from our home. During our walk down the dark country road, we passed by a house with a large yard and hear this strange yelping I could only describe as a mixture of a dog barking and a human scream. At first we thought it was nothing and just a weird animal or someone messing with us. After the yelping sound, we couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as well as hearing twigs snapping to our right in the woods off to the side of the road. We kept walking till we reached a streetlight and stopped for a few minutes, and while we were in the light, the feeling of being watched was heavily diminished, and the snapping twigs stopped as well. After a bit, we decided to keep walking, and the feeling of being watched came back. We keep walking, checking behind our back, and eventually we come across a field with knee-high grass, and we hear the yelping again, before suddenly the grass next to us starts shaking violently, as though something was coming towards us. Both me and my buddy stop and stare the spot down before we start shouting at it in a deep voice, which seemed to confuse or stop the thing. After a short time of nothing coming out at us, we kept walking, but looked over our shoulders before we reached the crossroad where our friend met up with us. We never laid eyes on the thing, and both me and my buddy are fairly avid outdoorsmen. It didn't sound like any animal I've ever heard, and whatever was stalking us, we don't know. Alright guys, day number 2 of the paranormal side. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I know I got a few comments saying, this channel really sucks. No Dogman. Well, like I said, there's going to be a Dogman video during the day, always, and the paranormal side will hit up at night. But yeah, it was kind of funny. Like, one guy said, this channel's really gone down. I'm unsubbing. What do you mean it's gone down? There's still the same Dogman uploads in the day, but now with a paranormal twist at night. How has that gone down, moron? Anyway, whoops. I know I say be nice to everybody, but sometimes it's just really I don't know how to be nice at that part, because it's kind of crazy, you know, like but oh well, I'm happy with it. It seems like a lot of you are happy with it, so I'm gonna keep doing it. And you know, if those 2 or 3 people don't like it, well, find another place to rest your head, because I know that for Dogman encounters, I'm doing a pretty good job. I don't think there's anyone else out there that looks into the scientific part of it, on top of sharing encounters, of course. A lot of them do that, but I look at all aspects of it, the attacks, the scientific end, the Neanderthal relation, just a lot. I mean, I try to keep things really fresh for everybody, but apparently some people aren't happy. Oh well, they can move on to a different Dogman channel. I'm sure there's a couple out there that are good, I'm not sure, but anyway, I know Dark Waters channel is great. That's about it in my eyes. So, moving on, thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed this part of the upload, and with that, be kind to each other, and may the Great Spirit watch over all of us and guide us through our path in life. Until tomorrow, my friends.